Rivian is one of the most anticipated upcoming electric vehicle companies, and with the first deliveries of the R1S and R1T scheduled for June of 2021, I wanted to break down my 4 biggest concerns with the new brand. Welcome everyone to Project Future. My name is Zack and I make videos about electric vehicles, so if you enjoy the video and want to see more, make sure to like and subscribe. So I've been extremely excited about Rivian ever since they unveiled their first 2 vehicles at the LA Auto Show 2 years ago back in November of 2018. And living in Colorado, I think their idea for electric adventure vehicles is brilliant, and they're clearly thinking outside of the box when it comes to the design of the R1S SUV and R1T truck. However, I do have a few concerns that I'm keeping an eye on with the first deliveries of these vehicles just over 6 months away. My first concern is with the efficiency of electric trucks and SUVs. Now on paper, the range looks pretty awesome, but unfortunately with electric vehicles, there's been a trend where they promise a certain amount of range when they're unveiled, and then when they're actually built and tested, they severely underdeliver. Now most of these instances have been with legacy automakers, so hopefully Rivian's being extra conservative and won't follow this trend. Their CEO, RJ, has said many times in interviews that as a company, they strive to underpromise and overdeliver. And I know they've been doing an insane amount of testing on their vehicles, so hopefully they can come through. Now Rivian is achieving these impressive range predictions by using massive batteries, and this isn't particularly surprising. Trucks and SUVs are big vehicles, and generally some of the least efficient based on their higher ground clearance, increased weight and size, as well as poor aerodynamics. The launch edition and mid-range version of these vehicles is going to have a 135 kilowatt-hour battery pack capable of over 300 miles of range. Now, if it were exactly 300 miles of range, this would put the efficiency at about 450 watt-hours per mile. Now, for reference, the Tesla Model X uses about 330 watt-hours per mile. But that's not really a fair comparison because the Model X is a much less capable vehicle. I only bring this up to point out that it will have impacts on charging time and cost. And unfortunately, we don't really have any electric trucks or bigger SUVs with which to compare to. But as an example, if you were using a 6 kilowatt level 2 charger, it would take 22.5 hours to fully charge the 135 kilowatt hour pack in the medium range battery option. So that's not quite as practical as using a level 2 charger on something like a Model 3, which would take 10 hours less to fully charge, all for similar range of around 300 miles. So with these larger electric vehicles, DC fast charging is going to be even more important, and you can't expect to fully charge one of these vehicles on a level 2 charger overnight. Alright, to summarize my 2 concerns when it comes to efficiency, first is that they can't deliver on the promised range. And second is that the large batteries required to achieve these longer range numbers are just going to result in higher charging costs and much longer charging durations. It's also worth noting that the Tesla Cybertruck is also planning to use some very large batteries to achieve its promised range numbers, so these concerns are likely applicable to that vehicle as well. The good news is that Rivian's vehicle should be capable of 300 kilowatt fast charging, which will help with getting juice into the batteries quickly as long as you can find a charger capable of these power outputs, which brings me to concern number 2. My next concern is with the charging infrastructure available to Rivian owners. Rivian has stated that they plan to develop their own charging network, but we don't really know all that many details about what those plans consist of. What we do know is that they should be able to provide 300 kilowatts of power, which is slightly higher than the 250 kilowatts available from the V3 Tesla superchargers. The downside is that they're starting from scratch, and it's going to take time for them to build this network. We also don't really know if Rivian is planning to develop a network to rival the Tesla supercharger network, or if they're just looking to target remote areas such as national parks and adventure areas where their vehicles are designed to thrive. It seems to me that the plan is to utilize third-party networks such as Electrify America and then supplement it with Rivian branded charging stations in popular but remote outdoor recreation areas. And this seems backed up by the fact that there's been a lot of talk that one of the first Rivian specific chargers would be installed at Moab in Utah. Now Tesla currently has over 1,000 charging stations in North America with an average of 10 chargers per station, so roughly 10,000 chargers in total. And Electrify America has about 500 total stations with about 2,200 charging stations, which is currently just a fraction of Tesla's network. The good news is that Electrify America is growing, And by the end of 2021, they plan to install or have under development approximately 800 total charging stations with about 3,500 fast chargers. And in a few years, I think third-party charging networks will likely surpass the supercharging network from Tesla, and this will be a non-issue. But I'm concerned in the near term, because if you're planning to buy a Rivian next year and then go on a long road trip, you're going to be a bit limited in your potential destinations. Alright, next up on the list of concerns is price. The good news is that Rivian is eligible for tax credits in the US because they're a new manufacturer. So for at least a few years, buyers will be able to get the $7,500 federal tax credit as well as any local state tax credits available in your area. And overall, I think the pricing is actually pretty darn good for what they're offering in these two vehicles. I mean, it's an electric truck or SUV that does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, is extremely capable off-road, and is loaded with luxury and tech features, all for about $75,000. But the reason I bring this up is because Tesla's Cybertruck is cheaper. Tesla definitely saw Rivian as a threat and tried to undercut them in a pretty big way. And I'm curious to see how this is going to work out in the long run, because the Cybertruck pricing just seems crazy to me. How is the base model Cybertruck roughly the same price as the base model Model 3? Do you know any other manufacturers that sell a truck for the same price as their cheapest car? Yeah, me either. I would have expected the Cybertruck to have been priced more in line with these Rivian vehicles. But regardless, I'm hopeful that it won't affect Rivian's sales too much, because I think there are a decent amount of people that just don't really like Tesla or this monstrosity. However, I'm still concerned because I do really want to see Rivian succeed, and I'd really like to see a sub $50,000 vehicle out of them to draw in a wider audience. Now, the fourth and final concern that I have is with service. Rivian has recently stated that they're planning at least 41 service centers, but we haven't heard the specifics on where these will be located. And they've also noted that they will come to you with mobile service whenever possible. I just wonder how this will work if you're 5 hours from a major city in some of the remote areas these vehicles are designed for. I believe that eventually they'll figure it out and provide excellent service. But for a new automaker that's not really targeting city people, I'm a bit worried that the logistics of the service network could become a problem for owners over the first couple years. So in conclusion, I'm incredibly excited to see these vehicles in action next year. And luckily, I think my concerns about charging and service will be alleviated over the next couple of years as those networks expand and develop. The efficiency is something that I'm definitely keeping an eye on, specifically looking to see the results of the EPA tests to see if they can deliver on their promises. And I'm eagerly awaiting a smaller and cheaper vehicle from Rivian to take aim at the Subaru fanatics, because that seems like the logical next step for them. As I already said, I'm really looking forward to these vehicles, so if you want to see more about Rivian and electric vehicles in general, make sure to like and subscribe. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. You done chewing on your bone? Huh? Is it because I took it from you? Sorry. I stole his bone.